In Haiti, the earthquake declared 3 days of national mourning. The 41st annual meeting of the Southern Carib African Development Community undergoes in Lilongwe, Malawi's capital. In Afghanistan, the Taliban announced a general amnesty for all government officials and urged them to return to work. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm Gladys Quesada, and now we begin with the news. On Tuesday, Haiti woke up to a day of mourning issued by decree of Prime Minister Ariel Henry in honor of the more than 1,400 fatal victims of the earthquake originated south of that country. Affected by Tropical Storm Grace and with the echoes of President Moise's magnicide, Haitians live on Tuesday the first of 3 days dictated by the government to mourn recent afflictions. From today until Thursday, the flags will wave at half-mast as a reminder of the 7.2 magnitude earthquake that took the lives of 1,419 Haitians and left almost 7,000 injured. Infrastructure also took a heavy blow. 84,000 houses were partially destroyed. Because of this, many inhabitants took shelter of grace in impoverished quarters. Ariel Henry, Prime Minister and acting President following Jovenel Moise's murder since July 20th, said that there was an obligation to show respect to the victims, given the proportions of the catastrophe's effects. The United Nations has allocated $80 million from its Emergency Response Fund to support the humanitarian aid in Haiti after a powerful earthquake battered the Caribbean nation.
Support the government and assist those impacted by the deadly earthquake. Our emergency relief coordinator, Martin Griffiths, allocated $8 million from the UN Central Emergency Response Fund to support the humanitarian response. This money will provide essentials such as health care, clean water, emergency shelter, and sanitation for people impacted by this disaster.
Honduras warned Guatemala that it could face severe charges at an international level, accusing the neighbor country of the environmental damage in the Motagua River at the verge of the Atlantic Ocean, which divides the border between both countries. The accusations were made by a mayor of the Caribbean region of Honduras, who expressed that the situation is critical due to the severity of the environmental damage done to the Motagua River, mainly in Guatemala's rainy season. The mayor of the Omoa municipality in the Cortés department, Ricardo Alvarado, denounced Guatemala for not keeping up its protocols and compromises established in multiple bilateral meetings. As evidence, the Motagua River continues to be polluted by tons of garbage from Guatemala. In Colombia, heavy clashes between the National Army and members of the FARC dissidents were recorded in the municipality of Argelia, a town in the department of Valle del Cauca, after 2 young peasants were killed. The mayor of Argelia, Jonathan Patiño, lamented the death of the 2 young men and rejected the escalation of the conflict in his municipality after the 2 murders were recorded. The official report of the authorities indicates that the murders occurred after both citizens were attacked in the middle of a checkpoint set up by dissidents of the FARC, the situation that generated the deployment of the troops of the National Army. Mayor Patiño also warned about reports of recruitment of young people and displacement of several families following the presence of armed groups in the area. In the midst of the investigations into the violent events in Bolivia that led to the coup d'etat against Evo Morales in 2019, the ambassador of Argentina in La Paz, Ariel Basteiro, assured that there was repression and indiscriminate use of force. Basteiro assures that, in fact, what happened in Bolivia was a non-constitutional interruption of a constitutional government. The diplomat affirms that the report to be presented this Tuesday by the interdisciplinary group of independent experts will account for the interruption promoted by the anti-democratic opposition in Bolivia, provoking the violent death of 36 citizens. In his statements, the diplomat also mentioned the cooperation of the government of the former President Mauricio Macri with those acts that resulted in a serious attack against the rule of law in Bolivia. Cuban President Miguel Díaz-Canel visited the oxygen production plant of the Ministry of the Revolutionary Armed Forces, located in the San Antonio de los Baños air base. The president praised the workers during his tour of the compound on Monday and stressed the importance of their efforts to counteract the shortage of oxygen supply in the country in these difficult times of massive coronavirus outbreaks. In his visit, the mandatory was accompanied by the Army Corps General Álvaro López Miera, Minister of the Revolutionary Armed Forces. Díaz-Canel, at the time, was able to witness the functioning of the country's third oxygen production plant, which was donated by the Russian Federation. And we'll be right back after this very short break, so don't go away. Welcome back. The 41st annual meeting of the Southern African Development Community undergoes in Lilongwe, Malawi's capital. The summit, to be held from August 17th to 18th, will gather a limited number of participants so as to observe COVID-19 protocols. The meeting will be held under the theme Bolstering Productive Capacities in the Face of COVID-19 Pandemic for Inclusive, Sustainable Economic and Industrial Transformation, and seeks to accelerate the implementation of a regional development strategy from 2020 to 2030, in particular the industrialization and market integration pillar. Also, during the summit, Dr. Lazarus McCarthy Chakwera, President of Malawi, will take over the shared personship of the regional body from Felipe Jacinto Nyusi, President of Mozambique, who assumed the post in 2020's summit. On Monday, the international community recognized the official results of the Zambian elections held last Thursday, August 12th, where the opposition leader Hakainde Hichilema was elected president. The Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, congratulated the authorities for the electoral process, as well as the participation of the Zambian people, recognizing their interest in defending democracy, stability, and the peace in the country. The President of the Electoral Commission for the African Union, the Shadian Musa Faki Mohammed, also expressed his satisfaction when evaluating the successful development of the elections. So did the High Representative of the Foreign Policy of the European Union, Joseph Borrell. And a prototype military transport plane crashed while performing a test flight outside Moscow on Tuesday. According to Russia's United Aircraft Corporation, the new light military transport plane crashed in a forested area as it was coming in for a landing at the Kabinka airfield about 45 kilometers west of Moscow, killing 2 test pilots and a flight engineer. The same corporation stated that a commission has been created to investigate the accident. The plane was designed to transport military personnel, weapons, and other equipment, up to a maximum of 5 tons. It was initially manufactured as a passenger aircraft before the military variant was created to transport the troops. Blazes broke out in Portugal on Monday, and hundreds of firefighters tended to the wildfires all throughout Tuesday, evacuating the population and attempting to control the disaster. The fire took place near the border with Spain in the region of Algarve and spread across 3,000 acres initially. Despite the authorities' efforts, the flames were driven by the wind and took up a perimeter of 40 kilometers while scorching an area of 9,000 hectares, as informed in a press conference by the Civil Protection Forces. Portugal is the most recent Mediterranean country to suffer mass heat waves and uncontrollable fires, along with Greece, Spain, and Italy. Scientists estimate the cases to become more frequent as the impact of the humanity on climate is likely to cause extreme reactions if our species keeps up the intense and constant rhythm it does today. A fierce wildfire near SAINT-TROPEZ forced evacuations in France. The fire service reported that thousands of people, including tourists in campsites, were evacuated as a precautionary measure to escape a wildfire raging near the tourist resort of Saint-Tropez in southern France. Around 700 firefighters and water-dropping aircraft were battling the blaze in difficult conditions, with high temperatures and strong winds. The south part of the country is the latest area around the Mediterranean hit by wildfires this summer, a seasonal phenomenon which climate scientists warn will become increasingly common because of man-made global warming. Meanwhile, as part of the climate phenomena, Romanians in Bucharest tried to cool off during another heat wave, with temperatures expected to hit 38 degrees Celsius in some areas. This summer, the Eastern European country reported temperatures exceeding 35 degrees Celsius for a record 15 days in a row, according to the National Meteorological Agency. Australia's second largest city has introduced a coronavirus curfew. The curfew was announced for the city of Melbourne, with residents confined to their homes overnight as authorities work to fight a Delta variant outbreak. More than 5 million residents will be unable to leave their homes between 9 p.m. and 5 a.m., with essential workers requiring permits to be on the streets. The decision came after a series of street parties, pub crawls, and home gatherings over the weekend as Melbourne reached a tripping point in its latest outbreak. Australia's most populous state has recorded more than 8,000 cases since the outbreak began in mid-June, with 56 related deaths in a population with low vaccination rates. Japan's coronavirus state of emergency will continue through September, also up to 12, rather than finishing at the end of this month as initially planned. Japanese Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga said the number of seriously ill people is increasing rapidly and added that the medical system is in very difficult situation, in particular in the Tokyo metropolitan area. With the virus continuing to spread across the country, the state of emergency for Tokyo, Osaka, Okinawa, and 3 other regions, which began in July, will be extended and expanded. The measures were enforced throughout the recently concluded Tokyo Olympics and will be expanded to several more prefectures, including Kyoto, Hyogo, and Fukuoka.
The Delta strain is rampant all over the world, and the spread of infection that has never before been experienced in Japan continues. The number of seriously ill people is increasing rapidly, and the medical system is in a very difficult situation, especially in the Tokyo metropolitan area. We will promote measures with the 3 pillars of building a medical system: thorough infection control and vaccination.
And we have more stories coming up after this final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. In Afghanistan, the Taliban announced a general amnesty for all government officials on Tuesday and urged them to return to work. The group also said that women will also be allowed to play a role in government that corresponds with Sharia law. The comments represented the first ones on governance in Afghanistan since the Taliban takeover of the country on Sunday. While there were no major reports of fighting in Kabul, many residents have stayed home and remained fearful after the insurgents' takeover saw prisons emptied and armories looted. Evacuation flights resumed early Tuesday following a suspension the day before as people crowded the runway trying to flee the country.
There's no doubt that there is not a differentiation in the amnesty announced by the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan. The Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan has repeatedly said that even those individuals who were ministers, advisors, members of parliament, that if they accept the Islamic system and want to live under its rule, they have complete amnesty. The Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan believes that women have been the main victims of the more than 40 years of crisis in Afghanistan. Therefore, the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan doesn't want women to be the victims anymore. The Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan is ready to provide women with an environment to work and study, and the presence of women in the different structures according to Islamic law in accordance with our cultural values.
In Afghanistan, life is returning to a new normal as Taliban consolidate power. Life was returning to a new normal in Kabul as cautious residents venture out of their homes to see what life will be like under the Taliban following their astonishing return to power at the weekend. During the insurgents' first stint in power from 1996 until 2001, when they were ousted by the United States-led invasion in the wake of September 11th attacks, the Taliban ruled with a strict interpretation of the Quran and Sharia law. As part of the aftermath of Taliban's advance, former Afghan President Ashraf Ghani flew to Oman after Tajikistan denied landing on Monday. Turkey said on Tuesday welcomed the positive messages to the international community given by Taliban fighters following their seizure of power in Afghanistan.
Now the Taliban have entered Kabul. They have taken de facto control of the country. We continue a dialogue with all parties in Afghanistan, including the Taliban. Right now, the Afghans are going to discuss all these issues among themselves. Who is going to take part in the transition? What kind of temporary government they will have? We will see and discuss all of this, but first, the country needs to regain calm.
China's foreign ministry said on Tuesday relevant parties should take effective measures to ensure the safety and the stability in Afghanistan after the Taliban forces entered the capital of Kabul and took control of the presidential palace.
Major changes have taken place in the situation of Afghanistan in recent days. Diplomatic missions and foreign citizens of some countries are evacuating from the country, and some Afghans also plan to leave the country. We hope that relevant parties would take effective measures to ensure the safety and stability in Afghanistan, maintain law and order, to protect the safety and legitimate rights and interests of Afghan people and foreign detainees, and provide necessary conveniences for the evacuation of relevant people, and proceed the work in a safe and orderly manner, avoiding casualties. We have taken note in the fact that the Taliban has said that they will act responsibly to ensure the safety of Afghan citizens and foreign missions in Afghanistan.
And the U.S. negotiators, led by Salmai Khalilzad, are trying to extract assurances from the Taliban that they will not attack the United States Embassy in Kabul. The chief U.S. envoy in talks with the Taliban sought to prevent a full evacuation of the embassy as they rapidly seize cities across Afghanistan. The U.S. State Department spokesperson Ned Price announced that they were sending home an unspecified number of U.S. citizens stationed at the embassy and just leaving a core of diplomatic presence behind, but he emphasized they plan to continue their diplomatic work in the Asian nation. The embassy also urged U.S. citizens who were not working for the U.S. government to immediately leave Afghanistan on commercial flights.
The fact is that a future Afghan government that upholds the basic rights of its people, that doesn't harbor terrorists, and that protects the basic rights of its people, including the basic fundamental rights of half of its population, its women and girls. That is a government that we would be able to work with.
The Pentagon spokesperson John Kirby said the evacuation of civilian personnel is expected to be completed by August 31st, the same date the United States military presence in Afghanistan is scheduled to end. The press secretary stated that 2 Marine infantry battalions and 1 Army battalion, some 3,000 troops altogether, will deploy in the next 2 days to Hamid Karzai International Airport to help evacuate Americans and the embassy personnel. The government officials stressed that these forces were being stationed to support the orderly and safe reduction of civilian personnel at the request of the State Department. The sharply deteriorating situation in the country as the Taliban rapidly advance across the north has forced the Biden administration to accelerate plans to get Americans out. And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For TeleSUR English, I'm Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.